Hello and welcome back. In this video I'm going to show you how to use the layer system, which is really good for organizing different elements of your level, and also if you want to collaborate with another person to work on the same level, you would need to use different layers in your level. So if we go to the roll-up bar and then we go to the layers tab, which is the last one, here we can import and create layers. So we can import them from other people, or we can create our own as well to use in our level. So to create a new layer, we need to go to new layer, which is this little button here. Create one. So let's say I want to separate the roads on a different layer. So I'll call one roads. Now we have roads. Now if I already have ones placed, I can switch them over to this layer. It's very easy. We can just click on the roads, hold control, we can add another one. So we've selected all our roads. And you see here on the details panel, we've got this little button, which is the layers button. And we want to assign that to roads. And then maybe we want another layer, so we can go to layers, add another one, call it buildings. And then we can go to this building, and I want to switch that to building. You do this for pretty much every element in your level, which is really good to, if you want to say I'm working on an area here and I don't want to accidentally click and move my road, I can go to my roads layer and then I can click this button, which will freeze all the roads, and I can't click them anymore until I unfreeze them using this button. Or if I want to hide anything, so if I want to hide all my buildings, I just want to work on vegetation, I don't want to see any buildings, I can just the eyeball, hide it. And again, you can also freeze it with this. This is a very good way of managing all the different elements in your level and keeping it all very neat. And just basically, if you need to search for something, it's a lot easier if you put things in different layers. So maybe, for example, I want to make a new town. I'll make a new layer for that town, right? So I'll call it town A. So I've made my new town. I'll make my new town layer. And maybe I want some buildings for my town over here. I can see which layer I've currently got selected at the top here. So if you want quick access to layers, you can click on this button up here and you can switch. I want back to roads, I want back to town. But you can see which layer that you're working on up here. So everything that I drag out now will be automatically assigned to the currently selected layer. So if I want, I don't know, I want a house. Let's get a house. Drag out a house. Let it load a bit. Let's put it on the ground. This house is part of my town. And that's on a separate layer to my other buildings. So maybe I don't want to modify that one, I freeze it. Now this is also very useful if you have a friend who wants to help you build a level with you. So you could, create a level and then you share the level between each other. But then you create your own layers for your work. So person A, and then person B can create his own layers for his own work. So I could have Marco's stuff, don't touch. So this is my layer. I can freeze all the layers that my friend's working on. So maybe Jeff stuff. So Jeff is working on this layer and I'm working on this layer. Let's say Jeff's got, he's also got a house on his layer. Do this house. That's fine. We'll just leave it there. So Jeff's got his house and he's going to be working on this area here. on his own layers. So I'm going to freeze his because I don't want to touch his layers, and I'm going to work on my layers over here. This is where I'll build my town or my little area that I want. So maybe I want a place. I'm going to place some cars or something. I'm going to place a car here. And I won't be touching Jeff's stuff, and he won't be touching my stuff because we're on separate layers. And then, you know, it's a lot easier to work with than when you're collaborating with people. Now, let's say Jeff's done more work and we want to import Jeff's stuff into the master file. So we're going to want to go to Game SDK. This is in the mod SDK where your levels save. So we want to go to Game SDK, levels. Then we want to go to my level, which is the level that we're working on. And then we want to go to layers. So Jeff wants my stuff to put, so we need to save it as well, of course. Jeff wants my stuff to put in his level. So I'm going to give him my layer file. So this is where it's located. So it's in the root folder for your level, and then layers, and then you can find the layer here. So now if he goes into his version of the level, where this doesn't even exist, let's do it like, so let's do this for example. So I'm going to give him a copy of that. Let's delete it from here. So you can imagine a scenario where Jeff wants the stuff that I've been working on for the level to import into the master level file. He would go to layers tab, and then he'll import layers. And then we can grab my stuff again, open. And there we go. There's my layers. That's the object I placed on my layer. And now it's in his level. And that's just a super easy way if you want to split up your level into different sections and have people work on different parts of the level, different areas of the level, and then import their work into your level. Now, this is only just for objects and entities placed in the level. So sounds, or, you know, prefabs or roads or anything that's just an object. This does not apply to vegetation, terrain textures, or the height map itself. So I don't know, let's say I make a change to the height map, or I make a change to the height map in the forest and the terrain texture in one area. So I added a bunch of bushes, all those kind of bushes. That's like, what am I doing? So let's say I added a few bushes and a few trees. I added a few trees as well. And I modified the terrain. I made a hill here. Now we want to put that onto Jeff's level. So we want to extract this area. And this also applies for like terrain textures. Maybe this is, put some small leaves on the ground. We painted the terrain here as well. So we want to put this into Jeff's level. So we want to extract this section of the level and import it into his version of the level. So we need to go to select terrain area, which is this button here. We need to drag out a box. So you just click and drag. And this is just, you just click and drag the area that you want to export. So if I go to modify, no. Here we go. We go to terrain, export terrain block. And then we can save this file wherever we want. I'm going to save it in the levels folder for now. call it Marco terrain block, and save. Okay, right. I'm going to close the editor now and load up a previous version of it where this doesn't exist on it and show you how to import that block. Okay, I've reloaded the level and now it does not contain the modifications I made to the terrain in this particular area. So imagine if this is Jeff's level where he doesn't have the changes that I've made, and I want to import my changes from the height map and the vegetation onto his level. So I've exported him a terrain block. Now I want to import that terrain block. So I'll send him that file and then he'll get it. And then we go to terrain and then import terrain block. And then we'll locate the file. This is where I saved it. It's a Marco terrain block, TRB. And then click open. And there it is. It's right there. Now, as you can see, like the color of the terrain texture isn't there. This is a separate thing you'll need to export. So if you go export and import terrain texture, you'll have to locate it on this grid map. So say I was working on this section of the map. This is another thing that I'll have to export and import. So I could export this part of the terrain texture. This is all just the color map information for terrain textures. So as you can see here, the leaves that I painted on the ground are now this kind of greenish color rather than this kind of color. So let's go to the corner of the map. Say I made this change, the color map. I'll need to export that area. Now, what we need to do is go to terrain, export, import terrain texture. That's in this corner of the map around this area. So we export that. We'll just call this Marco texture terrain. We'll export it to that place. There we go, there's the file. It's a BMP. And there's my little thing I just drew there. And then Jeff, on his side, he would import this section. So you tell him in this section, it's this terrain texture. So he'll click import, and then he'll go to where it's located, and then open, and click close. And he'll have it just as I painted it there. And that is basically it for using the layer system and collaborating with others to create your own level with multiple people using it, using the layers to separate your work, and importing terrain blocks and exporting terrain blocks and importing layers. And I hope that helps and lets you collaborate with others making your levels. Thanks. Goodbye.